नमस्कार। आज के कार्यक्रम में हम लोग सब यहाँ फिर जुड़े हैं। अध्यक्ष के कार्य को संपन्न करने के लिए प्रोफेसर सुषमा यादव जी होंगी। उनका परिचय मैं उनके आने के बाद दूंगा। और जैसा कि मुझे बताया गया कि शीला जी एक अपने प्रमुख सोशल साइंटिस्ट भाई साहब श्याम जी के बारे में बताएंगी और उनके सम्मान में हम लोग 2 मिनट का मौन रखेंगे, जैसा उचित हमें ऐसा प्रतीत होता है। तो शीला जी, ओवर टू यू। जब आएंगी सुषमा जी तो उनका परिचय देंगे।
Thank you, Amarjeet ji. Good evening, everybody, and especially to our main chief guest and the main speaker of the evening, Shatavdhani Ganesh ji, Professor Krishna Bhatt ji, Professor Chaturvedi ji, Purushottam Lal Chaturvedi ji, and Vajpayee ji, Amarjeet ji, Sudhir Babu, all of us sitting here in this, participating in this webinar. This is the 4th lecture that we are organizing today. And in the series of lectures that we are about to begin, before that, as announced by Amarjeet ji, I wish to share a very sad news with all of you. Many of you must have come to know about it. A very dear and near colleague of ours, Professor Shyam Kartik Mishra, we lost him to the COVID virus. And his early demise, untimely demise, is definitely a colossal loss to our academic world in general. And at Rashtriya Samaj Vigyan Parishad, we feel all the more deprived because he was one very enthusiastic, energetic academic who was making all kinds of endeavors, not only to propagate and strengthen and bolster integral humanism, but also National Social Science Association objectives and aims were very seriously pursued by him. So Professor Shyam Kartik Mishra was the chair of Deen Dayal in Banaras Hindu University, as you all know, a very reputed university of the country. He was also founder secretary of Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand Economic Association. He was Executive Council of Indian Economic Association. Coming from a rural background, he was a very self-made person who reached the pinnacle of an academic career, which is professorship, and earned name and fame for himself and also for the field in which he served because of the voluminous work that he has been doing in this field. Professor Mishra traveled very widely to address different kinds of audiences within the country and abroad. He traveled beyond the contours of the country and contributed immensely to the growth of economic science and of economics and social science in general. So, along with Shyam Kartik Mishra ji, it is rather unfortunate. Can I request people to please keep their mics on mute?
अच्छा ये बताइए, पहले आप इसको पकड़ कर हम बता देंगे। इसको तो रख लेंगे, इसको तो हम लेंगे। ये बताइए,
health workers and for that matter even our political leaders to this COVID-19 pandemic. As you all know, very recently, just a couple of days back, Shri Suresh Angadi from Karnataka, he also, who was the Minister of State for Railways, he also succumbed to this virus. And so also have we lost many health workers, we have lost some of our colleagues, we have lost some of our friends and relatives. So in this moment of grief, especially when we are grieving for our dear friend Shyam Kartik Mishra, let us all pay our respects to him by observing a minute of silence and also pray for his family to gain strength and endurance to bear this pain and in the incalculable loss. So I request all of you to maintain a minute's silence, after which we shall resume our lecture series. Om Shanti. Om Shanti.
जी सबको म्यूट कर दीजिए प्लीज ना।
सभी देवियों और सज्जनों से निवेदन है कि कृपया अपने माइक म्यूट रखें।
सुषमा जी आ गई है, उनका स्वागत कर दीजिए। सुषमा जी आई है।
Sushma ji, welcome Sushma ji. We are so pleased to have you between us, and Professor Sushma Yadav has joined us. She is going to preside this lecture today, and she is the Vice Chancellor of Bhagat Phul Singh Vishwavidyalaya in Sonipat, Haryana. And she has been the president of this association, in fact, the founding president of this association, and has contributed immensely to the growth of this institution, of this association. So we are so glad to have you, Sushma ji, and we look forward to your presidential remarks afterwards. Amarjeet ji, will you please just throw light on the entire program first, and then I will talk about the subject.
Thank you so much और नमस्कार। नमस्कार
सभी को नमस्कार, विशेषकर प्रोफेसर सुषमा जी को। आप इस कार्यक्रम में आई। हमें पिछले कई सप्ताह से आदरणीय शतावधानी गणेश जी की व्याख्यान माला भारतीय सोशल साइंस के संदर्भ में चल रहा है व्याख्यान, और आज चौथे क्रम में हम लोग भारत के सोशल साइंस के लिए जो सोर्सेज हैं उनकी चर्चा आज वो शतावधानी गणेश जी करेंगे। और उनके बारे में हम सब लोग जानते रहे हैं। उनकी विद्वता कई भाषाओं और 58 प्रकार की रचनाओं में झलकती है। 10 से 12 भाषाओं की नियंत्रण उनके ऊपर हमेशा जवानी या वाणी में भरी होती है, और उनके कारण हम लोग बहुत सारी नई नई बातें सोशल साइंस के दृष्टिकोण से सीख पा रहे हैं। आज इस क्रम में अपने विचार को रखेंगे, और मैं उनसे आग्रह करूंगा कि अपना आज का उद्बोधन प्रारंभ करें। आदरणीय शतावधानी गणेश जी।
Can I just give a few introductory remarks before?
Yes, please. Yes.
So just to apprise Shatawadhani Ganesh ji, I know that you are going to speak in a manner which is going to be forgetful for all of us. But I just wanted to remind you, sir, that most of us are social scientists here, and as you know by now, and the problem that we face today, that we all know that we are in we are supposed to be creating a knowledge society, and in this knowledge society, until we do not.
I request the participants to silent, please. Otherwise, I'll have to remove some of people.
आप म्यूट कर दीजिए ना।
हाँ, सबको म्यूट करता हूँ। एक मिनट।
अपना ऑडियो वीडियो ऑफ कर दियो।
अमरजीत जी आप बिल्कुल क्लियरली काम करिए
जी।
प्लीज म्यूट एवरीबॉडी।
So as I said, that when we are supposed to be creating a knowledge society, and this knowledge society will remain lopsided if we do not democratize the knowledge creation. And as we all know, the hegemony of the Western concepts and social science research methodology or teachings and etc., has in fact, in some way or the other, either put the Indian social sciences on the back burner, and we do not need to go into the details as to how we had a colonial past and then how it has been dominated by those who have not focused so much on that. Not to say that there has not been any exploration of social sciences. In fact, the Western, so right from, if we see Morris Jones and for that matter, Max Muller, and if we come down now also Wendy Doniger, or for that matter, Jeffrey Kripal, I do not know how much service they are doing, and we definitely know the kind of disservice that they have done to social sciences. So it remains to be understood that the social sciences, which Rajni Kothari ji very famously said, that India is a virgin laboratory, because we have not done the kind of social science research that we should have been doing. And those Western social scientists who have, in the name of Indologies, come up with social sciences knowledge about India, as Rajiv Malhotra calls it, it's the outsider view and not the insider view. And therefore, we have not been able to create the kind of theories or the kind of social science knowledge which in the long run helps us resolve the problems prevailing in society. So unless and until we comprehend the social problems and search for solutions in our own social principles and scientific norms that we created, because after all, we have to remember that our society predates the Western society. And since it predates the Western society and has continued so far, definitely have to be some principles, some norms, some basis, foundations on the because of which we have been able to continue till today. The problem is, sir, that we do not know how to study these principles, how to derive that from the social science literature that we have. With your vast view and exploration of these social sciences, we look forward to your lectures so that we get a know-how as to how we should proceed in trying to understand the principles of social sciences as depicted in our literature. And because most of the texts are in Sanskrit, and the present generation is not well versed in Sanskrit, therefore that is another big handicap that which we have to face. So I would request you, in the course of your lecture and discourse, if you could also let us know some of the authentic texts that you feel and translations which would help us to come to the right conclusions and derive the right inferences from social sciences. I think that will be very beneficial for us. We look forward to your discourse and are eagerly waiting for it, sir. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Shailaji. Om Tat Sat. Sharada Sharadam Bhoja Vadana Vadanam Puje Sarvada Sarvadasmakam Sannidhim Kriyat. Good evening. It's a very heartening thing that you pinpointed the dire need, what it is, and how it has to be evolved. Yes, the Western approach has given so many modules and they have translated so many of our works, and here and there they have tried to adopt and apply also, but the main problem is they have not gone from the philosophical essentials. That's why in the last interaction I told about the importance of philosophy, importance of Vedanta, importance of Darshana, because religion is mata, an opinion, while philosophy is darshana, a vision, direct perception, and it is not a hearsay. And hence, in the Veda, it is clearly said, Chakshur vai satyam, direct perception. And based on the perception, we have to make inferences. So, darshana is directly encountering truth. Encountering truth in all its directness. That is what we need. And in that sense, Vedantic truth has to be first understood. And based on that, our applications have to go on. Many times, the problem with going to our text without this Vedantic background is one important thing. That is something like applying the details without knowing the integrating factor, without knowing the synthesis, applying just the analysis, it will not be good, because social science, like other so many sciences, they are bothered by space and time. So we will be having changing society, changing challenges. Some of these details are changing. For example, we never even dreamt how our society will get changed when once even our children are getting the cell phones. How human interaction has been reduced to virtuality. Direct human interaction is almost made impossible. And also in the advent of COVID, how we are finding it difficult to have direct human interaction. It means earlier the body used to speak, the eye used to speak, the hands used to speak, and even the three-dimensional aspect of actual interaction used to speak so much. But now it is not possible. We can close the camera and just have the sound. We can close the sound and just have the body language. And even then it is virtual. Like that, there are so many such problems, and hence the problems will change time to time, so also from space to space. But the core aspect of it, the philosophy remains one and the same. And hence the Vedantic philosophy is must and should for all studies. This unfortunately has been completely ignored. Many vice chancellors are there, and many people who are pro-chancellors and who have occupied the coveted chair several times in several universities who are all present here. Eminent educationists are here, and they will be knowing how poor is the state of philosophy departments in so many universities. And in many of the universities, we don't even have a department called philosophy. And even they, Western philosophy is studied and not Indian philosophy. Even while when it is going to be studied properly, we are not focusing on the proper text. We are focusing on peripheral things. In the name of Indian philosophy, so many categories are being studied and not the real practical Vedanta. So these are all the difficulties, and hence to go to any subject, the background of philosophy is needed. And that's why in the last deliberation, I gave a brief introduction to Indian philosophy. And now I will be suggesting a few books which may be of importance and use for those who are interested to know Indian philosophy. In Hindi, Acharya Baladev Upadhyaya's Bharatiya Darshan is a beautiful work. And also, yet another Hindi work, I have forgotten the title, but the author is Chandradhar Sharma, who was former Vice Chancellor of Prayag University. Earlier it was Allahabad University. Thank God it has been changed to Prayag, Prayagraj. And its Vice Chancellor was Chandradhar Sharma. And his work is in English also, Critical Survey of Indian Philosophy, published by Motilal Banardas. And the same work has been rendered into Hindi with extra details also. And that book of Chandradhar Sharma, and also Acharya Baladev Upadhyaya, Bharati Darshan, these are very useful books for those who can read and understand Hindi properly. And for those who want to read English, Chandradhar Sharma's Critical Survey of Indian Philosophy is a very, very good work. And yet another work, yet another author, Professor M. Hiriyanna, who is not so much known in the world of philosophy, though he is a very big name when compared to the name of Radhakrishnan, who was a student of Hiriyanna. Hiriyanna's name is less known. He was a great scholar, great philosopher, and a born saint. A very pious person he was from Mysore University. And he is not about his books on Indian philosophy. For example, Outlines of Indian Philosophy and Essentials of Indian Philosophy, these two publications of him are very popular. But I don't recommend those books, though they are good. I recommend his independent articles. Independent articles brought out in the form of small monographs. They are Mission of Philosophy, very small monograph of 100 pages or so. Wonderful, really wonderful, unparalleled. That is about Mission of Philosophy, and Popular Essays in Indian Philosophy. Popular Essays in Indian Philosophy. And third one, Quest After Perfection. These three small books, each running around 100 pages or 120 pages, very, very beautiful books, most important. And by reading, one can clearly understand the structure and basis of Indian philosophy. There, we have a rare approach of synthesis. And it says, all various systems of Indian philosophy, they find their fulfillment in Vedanta. Western approach is all are opposed to each other. But Indian approach is they become steps towards realizing Vedanta. And hence, going to Vedanta is the first thing one has to do in pursuing any aspect of Indian culture, and more so with such serious studies which have to be carried out in the areas of social sciences and psychological sciences and also arts. Now, with this background of philosophy, if people want to know more about this, more about India Vedanta, then the best book is a very, very serious and very tough book. Vedanta, the Science of Reality, by one less known person, K.A. Krishnaswamy Iyer. K.A. Krishnaswamy Iyer, Vedanta, the Science of Reality. There, he very successfully and ruthlessly makes Purva Paksha of all Western systems of philosophy and shows how inadequate they are and what amount of positive we find there when compared to Vedanta. And there he never assumes anything. He takes from universal experience and analyzes. And so it is a very, very unique work. Radhakrishnan has written a foreword to it. And he was contemporary of Hiriyanna. Before a century that book was written. Even today it is very valuable and very relevant. I don't think any other better attempt has been done in the area of Indian philosophy since its birth. That is the profundity of Krishnaswamy, Vedanta, the Science of Reality. But a very, very tough book. But it will be conclusive regarding this. And of course, the other three authors, Baladev Upadhyaya, Chandradhar Sharma, and M. Hiriyanna. Hiriyanna's books, I think they are not translated into Hindi, but they are very valuable. Well, with this, I shall come to the sources. Today's topic is the sources of Indian social sciences, the sources of Indian social sciences. Which are the source works and how we can tap. Here, we have to remember as a dictum that these sources, though they deal with a lot of valuable material, they concern with a society of some other age. Though it is Indian society, the society was quite different. Though we have in spirit so many features identical, when a newcomer comes, when a stranger comes and looks into it, he finds drastic differences there. And by the differences, one should not jump to conclusions that they are not at all applicable. And that's why the peripheral things, the details, they may vary, they may change, and sometimes they may look opposed to our present lifestyle and our present understanding of India and Indian culture. Yet in philosophy, in principle, they have greater agreement. Before that, I shall give some features. Please correct me because I am touching the area which is of your expertise. I am no person, I am no man in your territory. But society has to essentially constitute the individual, and the individual will have a small group called family, and then community. So many things are there. These are all always present. But our sources, Sanskrit sources, they deal with these, but in different way. But the bedrock is one and the same. How? For that we have to go to philosophy. For good or bad, our Shastras, they presume that any reader will have that philosophical unanimity, philosophical agreement, and then they proceed. This nature of our Shastras have to be understood. Our Shastras have a different approach. The cause and the goal are one and the same, but the approaches are differing. And that's why they assume that a serious reader of this Shastra has a Vedantic background. If we don't have that, the Shastras make wrong, Shastras would make us lead to wrong inferences and wrong opinionation. Hence, Vedantic background has to be taken care of, and that has been assumed in our Shastra. And that's why, if we discuss about the individual and the behavior of the individual and his or her relationship with the family and the development of the family, and also so many families constituting a society there, what is the reason for such attitudes? What is the reason for a person's evolution? Why a person wants to marry? Why a person wants to have a family? And then how these families get interconnected? For all these things, Vedanta has the reason. It says, even the creator, before creation, thought it's quite boring to be alone. That is what it is said in the Upanishads. Ekaki na ramate bahusyam prajageyeti. So I want to multiply myself. And that's so, for the enjoyment of the highest truth, wanted to play, wanted to enjoy, and so it's created. It means our creation should be for our happiness. But what is happening? Our creations, many times, they are leading to our pains, penury, and difficulty. Why? Because the creation of the Lord, the creation of Paramatma, is not product of paucity, avidya. It's product of vidya. We enjoy film. A good film is enjoyed because it is product of vidya. But we can't enjoy life like that. Not all people can enjoy life because our life is product of avidya. Because of ignorance, we have wrong understanding of ourselves and our surroundings. And hence, all our endeavors will end up in agony, will end up in pain. And hence, this analogy of Brahma, Paramatma, creating the world for enjoyment, and we jivas indulging in the world and ending up with frustration, that difference has to be seen. Hence, the Vedantic background has to be kept in our background. And it is also said, all the activities of the world are products of raga and dvesha, likes and dislikes. And these likes and dislikes, raga and dvesha, are product of avidya. And hence our approach to the cause of the individual, cause of the society, cause of the family, and cause of the world is ignorance. Ignorance means what? The world seen as the bundle of conflicts and differences is product of avidya. But when once we wipe off avidya, we wipe off ignorance, the world will become by itself very, very harmonious, very, very understandable, and very enjoyable. It is very similar to, I shall give an example. If we know a language, people speaking in that language make a lot of meaning. If I don't know the language, the very same sounds, they are abracadabra, they are gibberish. I can't understand even a bit of it. So, awareness itself changes the situation. Though there is no change in the situation, it is correction from my side has corrected everything. Really, there has been no correction. But from my perspective, if I change, the rest of the things will get corrected by themselves. And that's why Nilakanta Dikshita, a great scholar poet of South India, he was in the age of Tirumala, in age of Nayaks of Madurai, 17th century common era. He says, with Vishayani chitte vidhiyatam yatnaha drishideya maushadam ko drishye datva kriti bhavati Vishayan anukulaitum Vishayani chitte vidhiyatam yatnaha. To make the world convenient, instead of correcting the world, look at yourself and get the things corrected. If I'm seeing the world yellow because of my yellow fever, I should not paint the world with white color. I should get medication. Once I'm treated, the world will look in its natural color. This is how self-correction has been the bedrock of Vedanta. Unfortunately, in the Western model, to correct others, one can see why there is so much of hue on conversion, getting converted to Islam or getting converted to Christianity, because I am correcting you. But in our tradition, we have to correct ourselves. So here comes the problem is how much of their religion has twisted their approach to such sciences, social sciences, where unlike physical and biological sciences, we have hard references, clear references, and no one can err. In social sciences and other arts forms, art systems, this problem is there. Religion dominating. That has happened in the West and not in the East, especially not in our country. And hence, our approach is introspection. Western approach is indulgence. Our approach is introspection. Indulgence means hegemony. Indulgence means domination. Indulgence means arrogance. Always the external hand coming and correcting, it is polluting the situation. If the water is murky, you should not do anything. Leave it to settle. But there, to settle the polluted water, murky water, so much of agitation is going on. It will never make the water clear. To make the water clear, you should leave it for itself. This is our approach to so many problems, and hence more solutions coming, and hence solutions themselves becoming problems. This is what we see in the overindulgence approach, and that is the Rajasic approach. In the terms of Ayurveda, we have two features, Saumya and Agneya. Soma is one of the synonyms of moon, Chandra, and Agni, fire. Saumya means very cool, calm, and soft. Agni, it's very brilliant, agitating, Rajasic. Both the systems, Western and Eastern medical systems, they are good. But in Indian system, the approach is Saumya. It means it's patient friendly. Our approach is to treat the disease and also the patient to restore the health and make him always healthy. But the Western medical approach is very aggressive, flamboyant. It may be needed at times, but especially in softer sciences like social sciences, Agneya approach is not advisable. It is the Saumya approach that is very, very important. In that way, when we see here, contemplation, introspection, that is our way. Hence, so many social problems, what the West thinks, are not at all problems to us. They have injected the element of the virus of problem in our mind, and we are seeing such problem through their glasses in our society. Yes, there are really certain problems in our society, but they can be easily corrected. Unfortunately, aggravation has become the order in the Western perspective. Hence, this approach of Vedanta is must and should. This is how Kama and Krodha, Raga and Dvesha, they are the reason for this confusing world, confronting world. When once Raga and Dvesha are managed, the rest of the things they get solved by themselves. And that is why in the Mahanarayana Upanishad, Naham karta, kamak karta, naham karita, kamak karita, naham karta, manyuk karoti, naham karomi, manyuk karita, naham karita, yeshate, manyo, manyave, swaha, like that. It is not me who is indulging. It is my desires that are making me indulge. And it is not me who is doing anything. It is only my wrath, the krodha that is doing. It is my likes and dislikes They are my likes and dislikes. They drive me crazy, and they are doing it is not me. Means human being by nature inherently is good. That is our approach. Not human being is papi, papatma. There is nothing like the first sin in our tradition. And so the first sin has to be emancipated. For that, all the problem of conversion, such other things are there in the Western approach. But in our approach, it is not so. And then again, the individual. Why it is happening? Why are the problems with the individual? It is because of raga and dvesha. From where the raga and dvesha come? By ignorance. What is avidya? Means insufficiency. Paucity of love, paucity of comfort, paucity of food. Such things they come in the way of making a person good. And hence, supplying that, how much we can supply from outside, to an extent we can. Because we all know, always demand is more than the supply. And hence, no amount of supply can quench the thirst of demand. When that being the case, we need a balance, we need a compromise to bear and grin and bear, as we call in idiom at English. It is the tolerance, it is the acceptance, it is the agreement, it is the broad-based sustenance, and that is called dharma. So, whenever we have problem with raga and dvesha, we have to go to dharma for our refuge. And this is the approach. Unfortunately, in study of our social sciences, this element of dharma is completely ignored. We talk so much about other things, but not about dharma. Hence, the approach of dharma is very important. In the aspect of dharma, we have varna dharma, ashrama dharma, and other things. But beyond all that, we have two distinct classifications of dharma. One samanya and other vishesha. Samanya dharma, they are universal in nature. While vishesha dharma, they change according to the situation. They change according to space and time. Hence, in our smritis, in our dharma shastras, we have a brief discussion of samanya dharma and elaborate discussion of vishesha dharma. Unfortunately, the Vishesha Dharmas are often and often studied for good and bad. And hence our works, our traditional smritis and other works on Dharma Shastra, they are attacked for good and bad reasons by many people, because the bulk of Vishesha Dharma depicted there is very much. It is very, very natural. Samanya Dharma is philosophy of Dharma Shastra, and it cannot be too much. Because in a book of mathematics, few formulae will be there, 5 or 6 formulae will be there, 100 or 50, 100 or 150 or even 200 problems will be there. Based on that formula, so many problems are solved. And in the examination, some 20 or 30 problems have to be solved based on few formulae. Means what? The number of formulae are less always, the philosophy, and the application is more. For 7 modes, we have any number of ragas, n number of ragas are there. With that being the case, the Samanya Dharma, nobody finds problem with it. If any person is finding problem with Samanya Dharma, the person himself or herself is a big problem. There is really everything wrong with that person. Because there in Samanya Dharma, unlike in the Western religious pattern, nowhere we have the elements of dogma, elements of belief, elements of a prophet, elements of a holy book, elements of a god, elements of a sinner or a sinner, elements of heaven or hell. No such things are present. It's everything connected with the modern human values. What we have every day, we speak about human values, human rights. Everything is that in Samanya Dharma. Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Shaucha, Indriya Nigraha, all these things are universal in nature. But the space given to them is small, because it's too well known and one need not elaborate. And also, they wanted to analyze the problems, analyze the demands of their society, of their time, and that's why Varna Dharma, Ashrama Dharma, Raja Dharma, Varnashrama Dharma, all these details have been dealt with in this Smritis with a greater scope. Much of them, much of the bulk of the subject is devoted to this. Hence, when once we look into those texts, whether it is Manusmriti or Arthashastra or Parashasmriti or Kamantak Nitsara, whatsoever, we should not get bewildered by the bulk of such treatment because it was need of the hour. For example, I shall take an analogy from Sangeeta Shastra. In Shangadeva Sangeeta Ratnakara, they have an elaborate section how to tune a tanpura and how to tune from one tanpura to another tanpura like that. But nowadays, because of science and technology, we have electronic tanpuras. Even every Android phone has an electronic tanpura which can play Shruti to any pitch, any person, whether C or C sharp or G or G sharp or whatsoever, everything will be played. It means that Sangeeta Ratnakara giving so much of detail about tuning a tanpura may not be need of today's music, but it devotes that much of time. Earlier, when we were cooking, we had so much to bother about lighting a kiln, but now it is not. One switch will be sufficient. Even to pound and even to grind, we had so much of elaboration. Now we don't need it. Earlier, to copy a book, it was so difficult. But now we can scan so easily. And once scanned, it can be transformed into any other form and it can be circulated all around the globe and even beyond the globe also. It's possible. Means because of these demands, these details will change. Hence, people who want to get some input from such works, they should not feel bad. Because Samanya Dharma, though in lesser quantity, that is of most important and that is the crux. And Vishesha Dharma, according
Sir, you have got muted. Sir, you have got muted.
I don't know how it got muted automatically.
Oh.
So in the case of our Smritis, if they deal with Varnas based on birth, we need not and we should not defend them for 2 days. They would have had some convenience there. And even then also there would have been some difficulties and there would have been some atrocities. We need not answer them. We need not even be bothered by that. We should observe that. But how the society was divided, even today, for convenience, it is getting divided into different aspects. So this way of looking at things is very important. Hence, we have lot of space devoted for Varna Dharma. For today's study, Varna Dharma is not at all important, which is not at all admissible also, which is based on birth. But what we should get inferred, how one Varna is not coming in the way of other Varna, how they followed certain disciplines and how they had contentment in their pursuit of realizing Swadharma, that is very important. Hence, we have to take inputs from Bhagavad Gita. Krishna made a very beautiful synthesis of all these things. And he says, identifying Swadharma means what is my capability and what is my aspiration. Means I have certain desires and I have certain qualities. Desires are my aspirations and qualities are my assets. None can call that my desires are my assets. What I am capable of and what I am aiming at, both may converge or diverge. Even in convergence, they may have some phase shift. They may have some stark differences. My aspirations may be too high, while my equipment may be lesser. But if they are aligning, then I have to go with that. If they are not aligning, if they are disoriented, then how to set them properly, or whether it is needed or not, is a different study altogether. Hence, in our sources, in Dharma Shastra, we have to bear that in our mind. Similarly, about the duties and rights of men and women, there also. In our Dharma Shastra, as they are dealing with one time, naturally, women were not given this much of freedom. Women were not considered as we are considering it now. This is what many people get to know about it. To an extent, it is true. But at the same time, we have something else also. What was the need of the society and how it used to go on? Today's society's need is something else. And at the same time, our tradition as philosophy, it has never kept women away. Because in Western culture, in Western countries, especially from the Christian and Islamic or the Abrahamic background, there women are never given any equal stake, let alone equal. She was not even recognized with a soul. It's only man who has a soul and not woman. That is though their approach. But in our tradition, it is neither man or woman. It's only that. It is in neutrality we speak about gender. So much of gender fluidity is seen in our tradition. Why? Because at the level of spirit, there is no gender. Gender is only for language. It is only Shabdagata and not with Arthagata. That is how we understand in our tradition. And that's the interdisciplinary study from the perspective of philosophy, study from the perspective of grammar, especially philosophy of grammar. That's all needed. That is how we have to look into that. Unfortunately, these things are not given in a deliberate manner in our tradition. Why? They presume that the seeker has been already given training in total philosophy, total Vedantic reinforcement has already happened, and that's why this. And hence, in our Dharma Shastras, it is clearly said, Ekam Shastra Madhiyano Nagachet Shastra Nadayam. A person who is pursuing only one subject cannot make any conclusive statement even in that chosen area of specialization. As Milton says, one tongue is not a tongue. If a person knows one language, he knows no language. That is how it is said by Milton. And the same thing holds good with respect to the Shastras also. Well, then we have one more thing regarding the family. In our tradition, family starts with marriage. And that's why in all our Dharma Shastras, ashramas, they start with Grihastha and not with Brahmacharya. In our Griha Sutra, one of the sources, one branch of Kalpa Sutra, one among the 6 limbs of Veda, one Anga of the Veda is Kalpa, and there are 4 branches, and one branch is Kalpa. One branch is Griya. Griya means family connected thing. There it starts with Vivaha because Brahmachari can come to existence only after his birth. And so first marriage and then child, from then onwards Brahmacharya ashrama. Like that it deals with. Means marriage has been given primordial significance. Usually it is said by many people that our tradition respected sannyasa very much. And so it is running away from the world, going away from society and going away from family. but our Vedic tradition is not so. Sannyasa is byproduct of samsara and not the main product. And that's why Grihastha has been given greatest significance, has been respected very much. So family-centric society is evolved in our tradition. Hence, if we protect family, the rest is protected. And family is naturally revolving around woman. That's why in the Atharva Veda, we have a sukta called Samanasya Sukta. It is said how a woman is very, very important. Yantri, Radati, Yamani, like that. She is the driving force and she is the driver who drives the vehicle of family. It is said so. And then it is also said in the Atharva Veda Samanasya Sukta, Sahradayam Samanasyam Avidvesham Kunomiha Anyo Anyam Abhiharyata Vatsam Jatam Ivagnya Anuvrata Pitu Putro Matra Bhavatu Sammana Jayapatye Madhumatim Vacham Padatu Shantivam Ma Bhrata Bhrataram Vikshanma Vasara Mutas Vasa Samyancha Samvrata Bhutva Vachai Vadatu Bhadraya. Here we can notice how cooperation became inevitable in family. And Grihini Graha Muchyate, it is a very famous dictum. Graha is called so because of Grihini. And in our Dharma Shastra, if there is no wife, then that person is no more a complete person. He is no more a Grihastha. And hence, he has to be married. He has to have the wife. In our tradition, widow and widower both are treated equally. No way widow was treated as an inferior person in our society. Earlier in the Vedic society, it used to be so. Because she is incomplete, and that's why in the Rig Veda itself, a widow was given full-fledged opportunity to get married once again. In the Mrityu Suktas, in the 10th mandala of Rig Veda, we see means family was not just spouse-centric, it was couple-centric. Both were together. And then the children. And from the marriage, you'll be knowing the ritual of marriage, the Saptapadi, very famous aspect in the ritual of marriage. The 7 steps go like this. Isha Ekapada Bhava. First, for food, we should join together and work for food. Rayaskosha Yadvipada Bhava. And for resources, starting from money, we should join our hands together and move. Isha Ekapada Bhava, Rayaskosha Yadvipada Urje Tripada Bhava. And for energy, if we spend all our energy to acquire food and to acquire all the bare minimum things, and we drain away all our energy, what for our life? So we should have energy for further things. And that's why Urje Tripada Bhava, and then Mayo Bhavaya Chatushpada Bhava. After all these bare essential things, one will be getting attracted to the other. Attraction and love is naturally a leisurely thing. Unless we have leisure, one cannot appreciate the other. In getting the bare minimum things of our living, nobody will have any time for bothering other. And so Mayo Bhava, Chatushpada Bhava, and then Prajabhya Panchapada Bhava. For the children, then, unless love is well established, unless the bare minimum things are very well established, there is no purpose behind, there is no purpose in widening the family, in multiplying the family members. So all these things, food and other essentials, and then the energy to sustain, and then mutual love, then comes the progeny. And then Rutubhya Shatpada Bhava, we should spend good time with the family. Rutubhya means for seasons. After that, we have all essential things, material things starting with food, clothing, shelter, recreation, children, everything. Even then, something else is very much needed, and that is the seventh one, and that is Sakha Saptapada Bhava, for friendship. We know husband and wife will have the completion of marriage, completion of family life only when they are friends to each other. You just see, juxtapose that with how Eve was created. Eve was created from the rib bone of Adam. Means is only piece of his body. Well, here, Argova Yesha Atmana Yatpatni, half of the body, real sense better half. It means how our family is developed, how the approach to family, how the approach to marriage is carved, is initiated in our tradition. That has to be seen. Unfortunately, such a detail is not given directly in our Dharma Shastra. For that, one has to go to rituals, Kalpa Sutra. One has to go to the Griha Sutra, one among the Kalpa Sutra. It means people who blindly go to Manusmriti as source material, they will not get anything. They get only one thing, Nasri Swatanta. So there is so much of wrong in this approach. Just going to Smriti has our sources. They don't even go to rituals. They don't even unstitch the things there and look into the details there. And in our marriage, there is one ritual called Thalipaka Homa. It comes from Urvashi and Pururava. Their marriage was love marriage, Gandharva Vivaha. I shall come to the details of marriage later. And there, Urvashi went away from Pururava. And Pururava became almost mad. And he was everywhere in search of Urvashi. And at last, he could get her. And then the Gandharvas, who were cause of their separation, they only told a solution to their lasting marriage. And they told, Thalipaka Homa is one ritual by virtue of which your marriage, your married life will be renewed forever, and you'll be living as two friends to each other. What was that? We all know in Hindu marriage, they have something like the Vedic marriage, the sacred fire, Agni, is lit, and their oblations are made. And that marriage fire has to be restored till the end. When a person dies, husband or wife, with his or her body, the fire goes to the burial yard or cremation yard, and there on the funeral fire, this fire is set and the body is burned. It means the marriage fire, the fire is a metaphor there. The fire of marriage means life. Fire represents life, energy. That energy and life of marriage has to be maintained, has to be nurtured, has to be protected till the end. Till the end. So, keeping the sacred fire, that is called Grihyagni, the family fire always burning, always living with full-fledged flame, means there should be a live wire in the family. It should be always vibrant. And so, this Thalipaka Homa has to be performed in that. How it has to be performed? One has to cook rice by using the fire. That small fire will be there. Within that, a small bowl has to be placed, and then wife has to pound the paddy and get the rice, and husband has to cook. You just take it as a metaphor, not as the just reality. Earlier it used to be a reality, and now it is a metaphor. The real thing is in the metaphor. Husband and wife should cook together. It means they should share. Cooking is one token of taking or sharing the responsibility and habit. Means they should involve together. Even today we see in the multinational companies, They should go to an excursion, and they're all housed in a resort, and there to have a better bonding between the team members, they have to cook together and eat. Ordering for food in a hotel or in a resort and getting whatever food of our choice and eating separately is not team building. They should join and cook together. Then they'll be responding to different tastes. One will be catering to the taste of other. Like that, there's so much of beauty there and meaning there. Why I'm saying, unfortunately, this aspect of Staripaka Homa as the symbol of restoring marriage, these activities, they restore marriage. Friendship essentially gets perpetuated when we have common interests and common activity. Out of sight is out of mind, it happens so. We had so many college friends. Once we get the degree and once our occasions and occupations are different, we forget the friends and new colleagues will become friends. And if we change the job, there the colleagues will become friends. Like that, we all experience that. Why? Common things to share and common work to move on. This is how this commonness is very important. And such features are not deliberately told in our Dharma Shastra because they think that people know everything. They know. That's why this interdisciplinary approach is very important. Now we speak so much about activity. Activities bring people together. Even in personality development programs, apart from just giving ceremonies, activities are very important. That's how they say ritual is an activity. You just see one burning example, one brilliant towering example is Rath Yatra of Ramajan Bhumi movement. Ramashilas were brought from every nook and corner of India, from every village it was brought. Today, in the newspapers I read, one lady has donated a big bell, Ghanta, weighing more than 600 kgs from Tamil Nadu, and that has been taken in procession to Ayodhya, and it will be reaching there on 10th of next month. Why? They would have shipped through goods train or through the aircraft. Why taking a lorry and moving everywhere? Ritual, interaction, activity. So people are there to donate and sponsor the whole temple. But how the temple would become everyone's temple if one and all from every village they donate one brick? This way of activity, if it is done in a formal way, with symbolism and with elevation, that becomes ritual. Unfortunately, our karma kanda has been ridiculed so much. But this activity, it forged our society. Of course, unfortunately, there is an element of disparity in our karma kanda. But we can get rid of that disparity and it can be made cooperative and complementing, and we can make better things out of that. And this way of looking at the multidisciplinary approach from our own sources is very, very important. And that's so in our next meeting, I shall give more details about the texts themselves. I am saying how to look into our texts and how to bring in different sources together and make one concept more meaningful and workable for our demands is very important. I don't know to what extent I could deliver these goods and make it meaningful. If at all there is an error or if at all there is a communication gap from my side, it is my own limitation and my own weakness and not with respect to our holy tradition. That much confidence I can rely upon your text. Thank you. Namaskar.
Namaskar. This was a wonderful talk as usual, and we were spellbound all the time. And today we could see those books are so important to us and how we have to go for that. Before I take certain questions from the people here, kindly allow me to introduce some of the very important persons who have joined today, apart from what you have seen in the beginning. We have among us Professor Chandrakala Padia, ex-Vice Chancellor, our Executive Committee member. We can see Professor Dipti Kumari, She is a social scientist, as we all know, and she has been a member of some Bihar Service Commission. And we have Professor Chaturvedi, Vice Chancellor, as very ably introduced by Professor Sheila Raji in the beginning. We have Dr. Barelal Jain. I heard he is from Riva. And we can see there is Professor Gopal Singh of Economics and Management. And I can see our own Sanjay Satyarthi ji, executive member, and Dr. Ramesh Salyan, all here listening to you with very, very great interest. With these words, I would request Rajkumar Bhatia ji, Rajji bhi abhi, he is there also. He has been very patiently listening to your presentation, sir. And if I am missing one or two names, because today we have been continuously having 50 on this channel of Zoom, and it's live on Facebook. So there are 30 more people on Facebook at the moment. So with these words, if I missed any important name, please forgive me. I invite people to take question directly by asking, and there should be no supplement question to question, please. Ask only one question. You can take a couple of them very easily. Please introduce yourself and then ask the question, please, or make your own comment. Thank you.
Shall I begin?
Yes, of course.
Again, thank you so much, Ganeshji, for the wonderful discourse that you gave us. There are just a few clarifications that I would require. You did mention that we have some postulates of philosophy which exist in a particular text, for example, Dharma Shastra, Manusmriti. But if you want to get to the real ritualistic meaning and behind the rituals, you can get the philosophical bedrock of it. It becomes very difficult for a person who is dealing with Dharma Shastra. And as you said, there are temporal, spatial differences to be interpreted later on. But when somebody is dealing with the Dharma Shastra, suppose I'm teaching in my class, and which my younger colleagues are doing in their classes, we have to respond to the queries of students who come up with, like for example, what you said about the Kalpa Sutra and the Griha Sutra. We are unaware of that. We teach the Dharma Shastra, Manusmriti. And as you know, Manusmriti has been quite condemned and has been raised for several reasons which we are not very proud of. Okay, so can we have some system where we can link those particular texts? If you could give us, like for example, which you did for one text, the Kalpa Sutra and Griha Sutra, can you give us such examples of other corollary texts enjoining those main texts so that we can interpret in the proper sense, in the proper manner?
Well, there is nothing like a ready-made book. Only one work. It's a very, very big, voluminous work having several parts. History of Dharma Shastra by Bharat Ratna P.V. Kane. He was a rishi. There you have all these. And one simple work is in English by Rajbali Pandey, Hindu Sanskara. Again, there they give the ritual, but the symbolism and the quintessence of the ritual is not being given. For that, you may have to refer to something like a concise encyclopedia of Hinduism by Swami Harshanand Maharaj of Ramakrishna Ashram in 4 volumes. A concise encyclopedia of Hinduism by Swami Harshanand Maharaj. It is available online also. Because unfortunately, in our regional languages, there are many works of that. For example, if you want such works in Kannada, I have my own thousands of talks are available in Kannada. And a work like Bharati Sanskriti of Shrikant Shastri is there. Like that, our regional languages are far more better than English books. This one has to bear in mind. Because reading, fortunately, those people who know Hindi well, there are many, many good books in Hindi which are very dependable translations of originals. Many scholars have done. In that way, Hindi is a very Bhagyaman Bhasha, I should say. Because On any text, you have 3 or 4 translations available. Most of them are very faithful, and the language is also very natural. See, they will not use wrong translation. Dharma means they use the word dharma itself, and they don't write the religion. They don't write varna means division based on color. They just write varna. Means the words as we feel they are given there. This is one thing. And the other one is we have to develop, it is yet to happen thing, the symbolism in the ritual, because the symbol is that which will be perpetuated in the form of ritual. It's not the mere act, it's the idea behind that that is going to be perpetuated. Because we know we give away gifts in any good occasion. What gift we give is not important. Love is being shown through the gifts. That's so this idea has to be carried out. This is one thing. And the other one is, again I have to say, from the Vedantic perspective, these rituals themselves will reveal the symbolism. If Vedantic perspective is properly rooted in our mind, it will naturally give. And you told about Manusmriti. Unfortunately, many people don't know that there are different smritis, not just Manusmriti. Kale kale navacharaha navavani mukhe mukhe is the dictum. As and when we have changing times, so we have different languages. The same language will be changed. One example I shall give. What word Sanskrit represents given for a teacher, Upadhyaya? In Ardhamagadi, it has become Vajjhaya. You all know the Jain tradition, Pancha Namaskara, Namo Vajjayanam, Vajjhaya. Upadhyaya has become Vajjhaya. And in Apabhramsha, it becomes Vajja. In modern terminology, it becomes Jha. Many people who have the surname Jha, it has its roots in Upadhyaya. So as and when time changes, the language changes. Kale kale navavani mukhe mukhe. Like that, in Krita Yuga, Manusmriti. In Treta Yuga, the Smriti of Shankha and Likshita. In Dwapar Yuga, the Smriti of Yajnavalkya. In Kali Yuga, it is Parashar. In Manusmriti, widow remarriage is not mentioned. I don't say not allowed, it is not mentioned. You just observe the difference. In Manusmriti, nowhere it is said widow should never get remarried. It is not said. But we have assumed. But in Parashara Smriti, it is clearly said not only a widowed person can remarry, even a married woman can get divorced and marry other person. Even when her husband is living, she can get divorced and marry. And you may be wondered and flabbergasted by knowing what word we had for divorce in our Dharma Shastra. It is moksha. Moksha is the traditional word that is for liberation, mukti, and the same word is used for divorce. Husband or wife, really they will be relieved and they will be virtually getting moksha if the spouse is bad. That is on a later vein I made a comment. So it is said, Nashte, Mrute, Pravrajite, Klibe, like that conditions are given. Pancha Swapatsu Narinam Patiranyo Vidiyate. When the husband is absconding, not at all known where he has gone, Nashte. Mrute, when he is no more, died. Pravrajite, when he has gone for sannyasa. And when he is having any disease which is not at all curable, when he is bad, when an allegation on him has come, Rashtra Droha, Raja Droha, he is a convict. He is a person full of Vedas, he or she. Then in such cases, husband, when he is such a person, Panchat Swapatsu Narinam Patiran no Vidiyate. In such conditions, she can get divorced and marry other person. Means Kali Yuga, in Kali Yuga, it is said that Parashara Kalau Parashara Smritaha, like that it is said. But this simple truth, which is known to one and all who seriously study Dharma Shastra in traditional manner, it is not introduced in sociology. I don't know if it is introduced, it is well and good. Manusmriti is studied, but we don't study Parashara Smriti, and knowing the importance of Parashara Smriti, Tej Vidyaranya, the great person who was behind the renaissance of Hinduism in South India, in Vijayanagar period, he is the founder of Vijayanagar Empire, the saint force behind Vijayanagar. He wrote a very elaborate commentary on Parashara Smriti because it is the most relevant Smriti of our time. And he made timely corrections in the form of commentary. And we should know, Manusmriti or any other Smriti, they carry many commentaries, traditional Vyakhyanas, because in the commentaries, amendments are made. We don't bring out another new Manusmriti, another Yajnavalkya Smriti, but we write a commentary and there we reinterpret the text and we make additions and deletions in commentary and we restore the original text as it is. You have to take our music system as a parallel. In music system, in South Indian music, which I am very much conversant, the compositions of Saint Tyagaraja, they have certain music. I have to sing the same song, but I can improvise. But improvisation should happen after singing what he has composed. And my imagination, I shall improvise and elaborate. Means we keep the original text and also the interpretation, improvisations, additions, deletions, and other things. This is how we have internal correction. This is how we have amendments made for our constitutions. These are our constitutions. Commentaries bring a lot of amendments. And so this is not a static system. It is a dynamic system. This we should never forget. But this has not been told by the Western trained scholars. This is the problem. And even our traditional scholars also not aware about these things to an extent. Such positive things which are there in our tradition have to be brought to light. Next question, please.
Thank you. Professor, before we have another set of questions, I would like to introduce Professor Shri Prakash Mani Tripathi ji, our Honorable Vice Chancellor from Amarkantak, from National Tribal University. And also we have one very distinguished Professor G. Chandrakanta, Director, Social Economic Change, Bengaluru. So I welcome both of them and just add them in our namaskara to them. G. Any new question? I am on for that. Anybody has any query? Since Dr. Shraddha Avadhani Ganesh have been speaking on our platform, we have reduced our questions because we are so much enlightened by your clear voice, clear presentation. We do get so much clarity in our thoughts and mind. Still, we have possibility of a couple of questions very easily.
अमरजीत जी मुझे अनुमति देंगे कुछ
जी हाँ
छोटी सी परीक्षा करने की?
जी
अभी आदरणीय गणेश जी ने मनुस्मृति, याज्ञवल्क्य स्मृति, पाराशर स्मृति ये बारे में बताया। हमारा जो वर्तमान समाज है जो कि निरंतर चलता चला आ रहा है, प्रारंभिक काल से चलता चला आ रहा है, तो मुझे लगता है कि मनुस्मृति के द्वारा बनाए गए बताए गए सिद्धांतों पर अमल करते हुए चलता रहा है। उससे डेविएट होंगे तो कौन कौन सी समस्याएं आ सकती हैं हमारे समाज में। उदाहरण विवाह के लिए बताया उन्होंने। अभी एक पत्नी व्रत और एक पतिव्रत का एक नियम पालन करते चले आए हम लोग, उससे समाज हमारा इंटैक्ट। पाराशर स्मृति के अनुसार यदि जरा सा भी हम बहुविवाह की ओर बढ़े तो कौन सी समस्याएं आ सकती हैं, इसके बारे में संक्षेप में अपेक्षा चाहता हूँ।
डॉक्टर गणेश जी, प्लीज अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ। Dr. Ganesh ji, you need to unmute.
I'm sorry, I have unmuted, but other voice was constantly interrupting.
That
That's
is
why I
some.
could not catch the question.
Vajpayee ji, could you repeat the question, because there is a sound of some radio coming behind.
अनम्यूट कीजिए वाजपेयी जी.
नहीं, वाजपेयी जी.
वाजपेयी जी म्यूटेड है. वो पॉज भी हो गया. हाँ.
वाजपेयी जी, रिपीट द क्वेश्चन. भाई साहब,
आप अनम्यूट कीजिए वाजपेयी जी. आपके प्रश्न को वो सुन नहीं पाए स्पष्टता से, क्योंकि समानांतर कोई और भी आवाज आए जा रही थी.
वाजपेयी जी, रिपीट योर क्वेश्चन.
आवाज आ रही मेरी क्या? आ रही है. मेरा निवेदन इतना ही था जो शीला जी ने स्मृतियों के बारे में बात बताई. एक तो दर्शन का भाव आवश्यक है, और मैं बताऊंगा, जब आदरणीय पीवी कृष्ण भट्ट जी समाज विज्ञान के 5 आधार बता रहे थे, तो दर्शन को भी इसमें जोड़ा था. और मुझे लगता है कि दर्शन की बात जो गणेश जी कह रहे हैं, बिना दर्शन की आवश्यक पृष्ठभूमि के हम समाज विज्ञान के साथ न्याय नहीं कर पाएंगे. एक बात तो अलग है. दूसरी बात मैं निवेदन करना चाह रहा था, जो हमारा भारतीय समाज है, कुछ संबंधों को लेकर के निरंतर चलता चला आ रहा है. वो अधिकांशतः मनुस्मृति के द्वारा जो बनाए गए नियम थे, उनका पालन करते हुए चला आ रहा है. आपने मनुस्मृति, याज्ञवल्क्य स्मृति, पाराशर स्मृति, 3 स्मृतियों की बातचीत की. हम पाराशर स्मृति का पालन नहीं करते हैं अपने समाज में. हम मनुस्मृति के नियमों का पालन करते चले आ रहे हैं. अगर मान लो उन नियमों से हम डिविएट करेंगे, तो कहीं समाज में विकृतियां और उच्छृंखलताएं तो नहीं आ जाएंगी. जैसे उदाहरण ये, एक पतिव्रत और एक पत्नी व्रत का जो संकल्प लिया है भारतीय समाज ने, कुछ इधर उधर डिविएशंस होते हैं, लेकिन मूलतः वही रहे, और वो समाज की हमारी पूंजी बनी हुई है. उसी समाज में जितने संस्कार हैं वो हमारे स्थायी बनते चले आ रहे हैं. अगर इनसे हम विचलित होंगे तो समाज में बहुत सारी विकृतियां आने की संभावना रहेंगी. इस पर मैं संक्षेप आपकी प्रतिक्रिया चाहता हूं.
Well, what we can get from you is, how come the differences in Smriti? Because it all depending upon the demands of the times. And at any time, we have defined certain ideals. But at the same time, the ideals, all people cannot follow with the same intensity. Then we have to give accommodation to other people who can also live to a certain extent. But one thing is there, highest ideals, even though if they are not completely followed, they should be respected. This aspect is always there. Even in the Manusmriti, we have polygamy, bahupatnitva, but respect for ekapatni is very much. In Manusmriti, we have the possibility of getting many children is there, but at the same time, one children is enough. It is said, though Manusmriti mentions that getting a boy is better, it clearly says whether girl or boy, beti or beta, with one, all the dharma is complete. Other children are only kama santana, and dharma santana is one, the first one, girl or boy, beti or beta. Because by that one child itself, all the pitrana will be cleared. This way it is said means, even in that smriti also we have possibility. What the modern people say about plurality, bahutva, it is certainly there in our smriti, but we respect the best. Here I remember one saying of a great Downsus and research scholar, Dr. Padma Subramaniam. She once said, I am permissive to many things, but I prefer few things. I am permissive. Mukta avakash hai. फिर भी मेरा आदर्श, मेरा फर्स्ट प्रेफरेंस, मेरा चॉइस is best. This is how in our smritis it is said. Various levels are given, various possibilities are given. but the best is also suggested. And at the same time, it is also seen that the best is not enforced. It is meant for inspiration. Enforcement will naturally lead to frustration and confrontation. That's why in social setup, law is something, society is something. Legality is different and conventions are different. Conventions are realized while legalities are enforced. And that's why we'll be having a lot of litigations with legality. But in convention, we'll be having little hiccups and easily they can get digested. These subtle aspects are certainly present in our Dharma Shastra.
Over to Amarjeet ji.
Presidential address. Oh, you are muted, Amarjeet ji, you are muted.
What I'm telling you, there are one or two more questions. Should we take it and then we go? There is one Manisha Malhotra from BHU. She is asking, I think Manisha, you can speak by yourself. That's much better.
Okay. So, Sadar Pranam. So we are truly delighted and enlightened by your, 4 speeches, the lectures which we have gone through the entire past 1 month. Sir, my doubt is that in this current era of influx of Western thought, like the whole social sciences, may it be political science, economics, psychology, everywhere the Western thought is being brought down into the minds of the youth. So how do we convince them, how do we inspire our youth to go back to the roots of our esoteric teachings of our Vedic Sanatana Dharma? Can you please enlighten us on that? How do we do that?
Mental, please, can you repeat that portion, mental?
Like most of our university systems, now the Indian economic thought papers are termed as obsolete and they're being taken out from the syllabus. So, and there's a lot of brainwashing going on for the motivating them to go through the Western thought. Like, for example, I am from the economics stream. So, in our own department,
I'm unable to get a clear voice. Sorry.
Is it hello? Am I audible, sir?
Now you're audible.
Okay. Okay. So I'm saying, sir, like in this. Okay, so sir, my question is that we are like trying, most of the universities, we are trying to motivate the youth towards the Western thought.
Sorry.
Amarjeet sir,
I read for you. You have written here a question.
Thank you.
Manisha ji is asking, sir, how do we inspire our youth towards our Indian thought of social sciences in the current wave of influx of Western thought and continuous brainwashing of our youth? She's asking some disha nirdesh for youth. It looks like one new topic for the whole day.
Living up to that can only make the other people inspired. To make other people inspired, we have to live up to certain standards. We have to live up to certain values. Then naturally, others will get inspired. If we have confusions and we have dichotomy in our activity, certainly it will reduce interest in them. That's what I honestly feel. One classic example I shall tell. Before 40 years, not many people used to speak in Sanskrit. When Sanskrit Bharati came into existence, and Chamu Krishnastri and others, few people, they started conversing Sanskrit, then the people started believing that it is possible. Values are meant for demonstration and not for preaching. So that is very important. And hence, it is clearly said in our Shastras that Manu clearly says, Jnanibhyo Vyavasayinah, more than the informed people, it is the practitioner who is very important. You just take one classic example. There are so many universities in South India at least. There are music departments. I don't know much about the North Indian music departments. How many good musicians, how many great artists have come from those music departments? And how many have come from Gurukula Paddhati, Guru Shishya Parampara? It's not from university, it is from the Guru Shishya Parampara. We have best of the classical musicians. Why? There we have living examples of a great teacher, great singer. But in our universities, we don't have great singers as teachers. We have only doctorates and professors. So that way, practitioners are very important. Because our youngsters are very intelligent. Our children, you see, they imitate the actions of parents and not following the words of them. This is the difference.
Thank you so much. I think we have enough time for the question. Now, I would request the chairperson, Professor Sushma Ji Yadav, to deliver the presidential remark for today's talk. Sushma Ji, please.
Thank you, Amarjit Ji.
Namaste.
Namaste, sabko namaste. Today's main speaker, Dr. Shatavadani R. Ganesh Ji, and he combines many roles: scholar, linguist, poet, author, philosopher, and originally engineer. It's really very deadly combination, and it was wonderful having you here. The founder and our source of our inspiration, most respected Professor P.V. Krishna Bhatta Ji, the President of Rashtriya Samaj Vigyan Parishad, Professor A.D.N. Vajpayee Ji, the General Secretary and my dear friend, Dr. Sheila Rai Ji, the Vice Presidents, Professor Shri Prakash Mani Tripathi Ji, Professor Pandey Ji, Professor Rajkumar Bhatia Ji, and today we have many eminent social scientists and political scientists with us. Respected Professor P.L. Chaturvedi Ji, Professor Chandrakala Padia Ji, and I won't be able to take all the names because Vajpayee Ji had told me to keep very brief because we already have had 1 hour. Yeah, but I'll just address all these secretaries and executive council members and state coordinators of Rashtriya Samaj Vigyan Parishad, and all the esteemed social scientists who have joined us today. I would first say namaste to all of you. I would also like to pay my condolences to the family of Professor Shyam Kartik Mishra Ji. प्रारंभ उन्हीं से करती हूँ, उनके दुखद प्रयाण पर मेरी सम्मानपूर्ण श्रद्धांजलि, और साथ ही पंडित दीनदयाल उपाध्याय जी के जन्म दिवस की जो कल आने वाला है उसकी सबको हार्दिक बधाई। यह संयोग भारतीय संस्कृति में ही मिलता है कि जन्म और मृत्यु की हम साथ साथ बात कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि दोनों इंटरचेंजेबल हैं। जन्म है तो मृत्यु है और मृत्यु है तो जन्म है, उसी प्रकार दुख और सुख है। और इसी प्रकार के दर्शन की बात अभी गणेश जी ने हमारे सामने की है। मैं राष्ट्रीय समाज विज्ञान परिषद की इस सुंदर यात्रा और उपलब्धियों पर हर्ष और गौरव अनुभव करते हुए अपनी वर्तमान पूरी टीम को बहुत अभिनंदन करते हुए, उनको साधुवाद देते हुए आज के इस अद्भुत व्याख्यान पर आदरणीय डॉक्टर शतवदन जी और गणेश जी का अभिनंदन करना चाहती हूँ। उन्होंने जीवन दर्शन की बात की है, सामाजिक दर्शन की बात की है, धर्म अर्थ काम मोक्ष को राजनीति और समाज विज्ञानों में किस प्रकार से हमारे ग्रंथों ने समाहित किया है, किस प्रकार से उनका समारोप किया है, उसको हमारे सामने एक बहुत ही प्रांजल भाषा में हम सबके सामने प्रस्तुत किया है। भारतीय जीवन दर्शन जो है और भारतीय विचार जो है जिसकी बात उन्होंने अभी की है, वह वस्तुतः सत्य की खोज है, वह श्रेय की खोज है, वह योगक्षेम की खोज है, वह आत्मा का ज्ञान है, वह जीवन का ज्ञान है। और मिलता यह हमें कहाँ से है? जैसे स्रोतों की बात जो आज की गई, आपने बहुत सुंदर विषय आज के लिए रखा है और आपका मैं धन्यवाद करना चाहती हूँ कि आपने मुझे इससे जोड़ा, तो मैं भी गणेश जी को पूरा सुन सकी। नहीं तो हम छोटे छोटे माया जालों में सब उलझे रहते हैं और इस ज्ञान की खोज से वंचित हो जाते हैं कई बार। आज उन्हें सुन सकी क्योंकि वर्षों से हम इस साधना में लगे हुए थे कि किस प्रकार समाज विज्ञानों की भारतीय की ज्ञान परंपरा को खोजा जाए, उसके स्रोत कहाँ हैं, वह ज्ञान कहाँ है, और उसको किस प्रकार से आधुनिक संकल्पनाओं को समझने के लिए प्रयोग किया जाए, या आधुनिक समस्याओं के समाधान के लिए उनका समारोपण किया जाए। और उस रूप में जो भारत की समृद्ध परंपरा है, अत्यंत प्राचीन समय से विद्यमान भी है और उसमें निरंतरता भी है, यह जरूर प्रमाणित करती है कि सामाजिक, राजनीतिक, आर्थिक और सांस्कृतिक व्यवस्था, जिसमें कुछ व्यवधान भी आए हैं, परंतु कुछ ना कुछ मूल सिद्धांत अवश्य रहे कि हमारी सभ्यता, हमारी संस्कृति, हमारी व्यवस्था, समाज और राज्य की व्यवस्था अब तक निरंतर जारी है। और इनको आज जिस प्रकार से शतवदनी गणेश जी ने हमारे सामने रखा है, देखिए वो सुख और दुख की जो बात कर रही थी, उन्होंने एक ही समय पर वेडिंग फायर और फ्यूनरल फायर दोनों का उल्लेख कर दिया। अग्नि अपने आप में पवित्र है, तो वो विवाह के समय भी जलती है और हमें कुछ याद दिलाती है, और मृत्यु के समय भी वही ले जाती है और वह भी कुछ ज्ञान देकर जाती है।
सुषमा जी, you got muted.
सुंदरता से उन्होंने जोड़ा, यह वस्तुतः उस अखंड ज्ञान परंपरा का भाग है जो उन्होंने आत्मसात कर रखी है। जैसा उनके परिचय में कहा गया, जिस प्रकार का ज्ञान उन्हें है वह केवल वहीं से आ सकता था। और इसलिए मैं समझती हूँ ये जो आपने एक लेक्चर सीरीज या व्याख्यान माला आरंभ की है, ये हमारी उन सब बहुत सारे प्रश्नों, संदेहों, शंकाओं और खोजों का समाधान है। हम कहते थे भारतीय समाज विज्ञान कहाँ से पढ़ाएं, सिर्फ राजनीति विज्ञान नहीं, अर्थशास्त्र भी है, दर्शन शास्त्र भी है, समाज शास्त्र भी है, और उनकी बहुत सारी अवधारणाएं जो हमारे ऊपर बहुत सारी प्रत्यारोपित कर दी गई हैं, जिनमें से जेंडर की अभी उन्होंने बात की थी, और उसी प्रकार से अर्धनारीश्वर की संकल्पना की यदि बात करते हैं तो वो नर और नारी आधे नहीं है, उसमें ईश्वर भी समाहित है। यही यहाँ की सुंदरता है। और किसी धर्म में आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि ईश्वर महिला और पुरुष में समाये हुए हैं, क्योंकि वहां ईश्वर ईश्वर है और नर और नारायण और नारी एक साथ नहीं आ सकते। वो भारतीय परंपरा का मात्र हिस्सा है। और इसीलिए गृहिणी ग्रहम उच्चते, यानी गृहिणी से ग्रह बनता है, ग्रह से गृहिणी नहीं बनती। और ये भी नारी का जो विशेष स्थान भारतीय परंपरा में है, उसकी ओर उन्होंने ध्यान आकर्षित किया। और कितने प्रेम से उन्होंने आधुनिकता और हमारी परंपरागत जीवन शैली को, जीवन ज्ञान परंपरा को जोड़ा है। जब ये कहा कि हमारे शास्त्र कहते हैं अनेक स्थानों पर पति पत्नी साथ भोजन बनाएं, husband and wife cooking together, which becomes a game for the multinationals or the modern entertainment industry as you call it. हमारे यहाँ कितनी समयातीत योजनाएं थी, समयातीत परंपराएं थी। वो मात्र कर्मकांड नहीं थे, वो बहुत ही वैज्ञानिक रूप से सोचे गए कर्म थे, कांड नहीं थे मात्र। और उनके पीछे एक बहुत बड़ा दर्शन था। उस दर्शन को समझना, उस दर्शन के पीछे के भाव को समझना और उस दर्शन के पीछे की वैज्ञानिकता को समझना हमें आधुनिक समय में, जैसा अभी एक मनीषा जी ने प्रश्न किया है कि हम किस प्रकार से इसे अब के बच्चों तक ले जाएं, तो आप उन्हें बताएं कि पाश्चात्य विश्व तो थक चुका है, अपनी ही संकल्पनाओं और अपनी ही जीवन शैली के जाल में वो इतना उलझ गया है कि अब उनके सामने समस्या है कि वहां से निकलें कैसे। इसीलिए हरे राम हरे कृष्ण उन्हें बड़ी सरलता से आकर्षित कर लेता है, हमारे आश्रम उन्हें बहुत सरलता से आकर्षित करते हैं और वहां वो जीवन और जीवन के रहस्य खोजते हैं। और उसी रूप में वर्ल्ड बैंक ने यूएन एडवाइजरी जो पहले आई थी, जहां कहा था कि सबको एंशिएंट फिलोसफीज को छोड़ देना चाहिए एंड दे मस्ट मूव ऑन टू द मॉडर्न फिलोसफीज, और फिर वर्ल्ड बैंक ये कहता है कि नो, वी वर रॉन्ग, वन साइज फिट्स ऑल इज नॉट द राइट फिलोसफी, वी मस्ट मूव टू द peculiar culture, civilizational values of every civilization and every culture, and therefore they said the cultural roots of development must be searched. And India is fortunate to have this rich culture, these rich sources of information, knowledge and knowledge systems in fact. बहुत सारी सूची मेरे पास है, लेकिन गणेश जी ने इतनी विस्तार से सब बता दिया है। लेकिन इन दर्शनों को, इन मीमांसाओं को, इन स्मृतियों को, इन धर्मशास्त्रों को, इन सूत्रों को एक बार फिर से समझने की आवश्यकता है। और इस प्रकार से समझने की आवश्यकता है कि वो मात्र एंशिएंट नॉलेज सिस्टम नहीं है, वह जीवंत ज्ञान परंपराएं हैं, और जीवंत ज्ञान परंपराओं में ही हमारे समाधान मिलते हैं। इसलिए हमें इन सब को एक बार उस अर्थ में समझने की आवश्यकता है। और मुझे लगता है जो अभी राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति आई है वो एक हमें बहुत सुंदर अवसर प्रदान कर रही है, जहां भारतीय भाषाओं के ज्ञान की बात है, where we say we must teach students in their mother tongues and in their mother tongues and regional languages. Regional languages also have great sources of knowledge systems. So if we start this translation institute, which the National Education Policy 2020 envisages, and we start educating in our own regional languages or mother tongues, and then develop resources around them, then I'm sure they'll become our resources for understanding Indian society, Indian knowledge systems, our roots, which is the main aim of Rashtriya Samaj Vigyan Parishad. I would say Rashtriya Samaj Vigyan Parishad has arrived. It's a real good time for the social scientists in India. I wish to compliment the office bearers and our respected founder, patron, and the eminent speaker today, and all those who are now associated with Rashtriya Samaj Vigyan Parishad, because by organizing such lectures and such series, you are giving a lot of food for thought, a lot of food for writing, and a lot of food for research to the present generation. Please mix Sanskrit with other regional languages, Sanskrit with English, and Sanskrit with Hindi, and turn your knowledge systems into modern concepts and postulates which we have around. And I'm sure we will not only have our ancient knowledge system, but the modern Indian knowledge system also, which is going to give the world a lot to think about. मैं आप सबका धन्यवाद करना चाहती हूँ। इस समय जो हमारी टीम है राष्ट्रीय समाज विज्ञान परिषद की, कि आपने मुझे आज इतने सुंदर व्याख्यान पर आपके साथ बैठने का अवसर दिया और अपने विचार रखने का भी अवसर दिया। मेरी शुभकामना है कि राष्ट्रीय समाज विज्ञान परिषद और समाज विज्ञानों की विचार यात्रा इतनी ही सुंदर गति से, इतनी ही तीव्र गति से, इतनी ही गहनता से चलती रहे, और वो समय दूर न हो जब भारतीय समाज विज्ञान विश्व में अपना स्थान बनाए और भारत के युवा के मन में एक आत्म गौरव का, अपने ज्ञान के प्रति प्रेम का संचार करे, जो हमारा उद्देश्य भी है। एक बार फिर आप सभी गुरुजनों को मेरा प्रणाम और सभी समाज वैज्ञानिक साथियों का अभिनंदन। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद प्रोफेसर सुषमा जी फॉर मनोरम शब्दों के द्वारा हम लोग अपनी आज की प्रकल्पना को एक मूर्त रूप दिया हिंदी शब्द में, उसके लिए विशेष आभार, क्योंकि कई हिंदी भाषी यहाँ पर हैं। कार्यक्रम के अंत में आज धन्यवाद ज्ञापन करेंगे प्रोफेसर सुधीर बाबू, जो हमारे राष्ट्रीय समाज विज्ञान के कार्यकारिणी समिति के सदस्य हैं। सुधीर बाबू जी प्रेसिडेंट भी हैं भारतीय विचार मंच प्रज्ञा प्रवाह तिरुवनंतपुरम केरल। आप पहले महात्मा गांधी यूनिवर्सिटी केरल में जुड़े रहे एक प्रशासनिक अधिकारी के रूप में। आप बड़े ही एक रोचक रूप से जाने जाने वाले मलयालम के फीचर फिल्मों के स्क्रिप्ट राइटर रहे हैं। इन्होंने कई फिल्मों की कहानियां लिखी हैं मॉलीवुड कह लें या मलयालम की फूलों के लिए कोई अलग नाम शायद है, और उन्होंने इंटीग्रल ह्यूमनिज्म पर जो इंग्लिश और मलयालम में कई पुस्तकें पब्लिश की हैं, वो बड़े ही सुंदर मानी जाती हैं। और आप भारतीय विचार केंद्रम जो प्रज्ञा प्रवाह का केरल संभाग है, उसके आप महासचिव हैं। Sudhir Babuji, you are most welcome to come to deliver the vote of thanks for the day. Professor Sudhir Babu.
Thank you, Amarjit ji.
Namaste.
Respected Chair Dr. Sushma ji Yadav, Leonard Dr. Siddhavadani R. Ganesh ji, Professor Krishnaford ji, Dr. Vajpayee ji, Dr. Sheila ji, and other Leonard professors who are listening to the webinar. Please accept my sadar pranams to all. We have been blessed with the company of a great soul like Dr. Siddhavadani R. Ganesh ji, who is a living legend and manifestation of the real Bharatiyata in our intellectual life. After listening to his spontaneous overflow of powerful ideas on the tradition of Indian social thought during this lecture series, we are more enlightened and heavily armed to lead an ideological and academic battle against the left jihadi urban Naxal command. Last week, we had his views on Vedanta, a bedrock of all Indian thought systems. And today, we heard him on Indian sources of social sciences. His words flashed more lights on the subject, which was lying buried under the debris of useless negative Western ideas. He packed us with more confidence and provided with more tools to venture into further research in the light of ancient Indian wisdom. It was a wonderful experience. He spoke as if the sacred and perennial Ganga Pravaha of Bharatiya Jnana Saraswati coming rushing to us and showering her of absolute knowledge on us. We are more sober now. Thank you. Thank you very much. On behalf of Rashtriya Samaj Jnana Parishad, its founder and patron Dr. Krishnaford ji, I thank Sir Dr. Siddhavadani Ganesh ji for spending your valuable time with us and sharing your treasure house of wisdom, which is both ancient and most modern. Thank you, sir. I wish to thank Dr. Professor Smaji Yadav, Chancellor of BPS Mahila Vishwavidyalaya, Sonipat, who chaired the meeting and shared the subject. I thank Dr. Krishnaford ji, whose presence itself is an inspiration for people like me, and let me express thanks to Dr. Professor Adian Peji and Sheila ji, who are RSVP, which has proved its brilliant commitment by electing Dr. Siddhavadani R. Ganesh ji for its Billy Discourse series on tradition of Indian social thought. I thank all the participants from all states of India abroad. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Sudhir Babu, for your brief but very effective, powerful vote of thanks. With these words, we have the end of the day, and we look forward to having Dr. Ganesh ji very soon, next Thursday.
So if we have a video of the next topic, sir, then
the same thing, sources that will continue.
That will continue. Part 2 will get. Thank you so much. This will be available regularly on Facebook, live and recorded. So please see there also. With these words, I take permission from all of you to end the day. Thank you, everybody. Namaskar.
Thank you, Amarjit ji.
Namaskar. Namaskar. संजय जी को नमस्कार।
नमस्कार सर जी, अमरजीत जी।
जी नमस्कार।